The collapse of a dynasty, truth, betrayal, and the day Forrester creations shattered. In the glittering, high-stakes world of fashion, a press conference is more than just an announcement. It is a coronation. It is a meticulously crafted performance where image is everything and the narrative is controlled with the precision of a master couturier. For Forrester Creations, the legendary fashion house that has long defined Los Angeles glamour, this was meant to be such a day, a triumphant celebration of revival and legacy. Instead, it became the epicenter of a cataclysmic event, a moment where a carefully constructed world of elegance and power was brought to its knees by the one thing it could not withstand, a brutal, unforgiving truth. What began as a celebration of Hope Logan's revitalized fashion line, Hope for the Future, descended into a nightmare of public humiliation, family schism, and a medical crisis that left the company's very patriarch, Eric Forrester, fighting for his life on the floor. This was not a simple corporate misstep or a scandalous rumor whispered in the tabloids. This was a detonation at the heart of the Forrester family, orchestrated by one of their own. It was a day that posed a devastating question: is a truth that destroys everything worth telling? And was Hope Logan a righteous hero for speaking it, or the architect of her family's collapse? To understand the shockwaves that continue to ripple through the Forrester dynasty, one must return to the deceptive calm before the storm, to a room filled with anticipation that was about to be replaced by horror. The Gilded Cage, a celebration on the brink. The energy at Forrester Creations was, by all accounts, electric. The main showroom, a testament to decades of design excellence, buzzed with the low hum of industry insiders, the frenetic energy of photographers jostling for the perfect angle, and the eager whispers of journalists anticipating their next headline. Champagne flutes clinked, a fragile sound that would soon seem a mocking echo of the peace that was about to be shattered. This was the stage for the triumphant return of Hope Logan's Hope for the Future line, a brand once considered to be floundering, now revitalized and poised to reclaim its place in the fashion world. At the center of it all stood Hope, a vision of composed elegance. Her golden curls were perfectly set, her dress the reflection of the effortless grace her line promised. She was poised at the podium, a composed smile gracing her lips. But for those who knew her, for those who could see beyond the flawless exterior, there was a disquieting dissonance. The smile was a mask, a fragile veneer that didn't quite reach her eyes. Her gaze, as it swept across the room, was not that of a triumphant designer, but of a soldier steeling herself for a battle she knew she could not win without inflicting devastating casualties. In the front row, her mother, Brooke Logan, glowed with maternal pride, her face a portrait of unwavering support for her daughter's success. Slightly offstage, however, stood Ridge Forrester, Hope's stepfather and a pillar of the company. His arms were folded, his expression an unreadable mixture of interest and a deep, gnawing unease. He watched Hope not as a proud parent, but as a sentinel sensing a threat to the kingdom he had fought his whole life to protect. His intuition was screaming, even if he didn't yet know why. Conspicuously absent was Steffi Forrester, Ridge's daughter and Hope's perennial rival. The official excuse was a vague family emergency, but her absence was a statement in itself. Steffi, ever the pragmatist and fierce protector of the Forrester name, had sensed that something was fundamentally wrong. She refused to be a party to the spectacle, a decision that would later seem like a prescient move to avoid being caught in the immediate, destructive fallout. On the surface, everything was perfect. The branding, the venue, the star designer about to deliver a speech on empowerment and vision, it was a masterclass in public relations. But beneath that polished surface, within Hope's heart, a war was raging. Weeks of internal struggle, of sleepless nights and moral turmoil had led her to this single, climactic moment. She was no longer here to simply sell fashion. She had come with a truth too heavy to carry alone, and she was ready to let it all out, regardless of the cost. The unveiling. A podium becomes a precipice. As the press conference reached its zenith, the moment for Hope's prepared remarks, the very atmosphere in the room seemed to hold its breath. What started as a glowing speech about vision, empowerment, and creative rebirth began to twist. Hope's tone shifted so suddenly, so dramatically, that even the whirring cameras seemed to hesitate. The practiced cadence of a public figure gave way to something raw, trembling, and dangerously real. "Before we move forward," she began, her voice cracking ever so slightly, "I need to take a step back, because there's a truth I've uncovered. Something deeply buried." A hush fell over the crowd. Brooke's proud smile faltered, replaced by a flicker of confusion. Ridge leaned forward, his unease solidifying into alarm. With a deliberate, almost ceremonial gravity, Hope pulled a simple manila folder from beneath the podium and placed it on the table before her. She opened it slowly, each movement amplifying the tension in the room. Then, she held up a stack of documents. "These files," she announced, her voice gaining a chilling strength, "are not design drafts. They are financial records. Internal company documents." She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. "They reveal a pattern of concealed decisions made years ago. Decisions that resulted in mass layoffs for hundreds of dedicated employees, while high-level executives, including names we all revere, received massive, off-the-record bonuses during a supposed budget crisis." A collective gasp rippled through the room. Whispers died on lips. Brooke's face was now a mask of disbelief. The revelation was a bombshell, but Hope hadn't delivered the final, fatal blow. Her eyes, filled with a sorrowful resolve, found her grandfather in the audience. The collapse of a legend. Eric Forrester, the patriarch, the legend, the very foundation upon which the house was built, sat with quiet dignity. He looked on, puzzled, his brow furrowed as he tried to comprehend the direction his granddaughter's speech had taken. He was the icon, the benevolent king of this fashion empire, beloved by his family and respected by the industry. Then came the moment that stopped time. Hope, with tears welling in her eyes but a voice that did not waver, made the betrayal personal. She laid bare the details, implicating her own grandfather in the deception. For a few agonizing moments after she finished speaking, time seemed to stretch, thick and unnatural. Eric Forrester sat frozen, his gaze locked on Hope. It was a look of profound, soul-shattering confusion, a desperate attempt to process an incomprehensible wave of betrayal. The public nature of it, the coldness of the delivery from his own flesh and blood, was a blow from which there was no defense. Color drained from his face. His breath came in short, ragged gasps. His hand, resting on the armrest of his chair, began to tremble uncontrollably. He tried to stand, perhaps to speak, to deny, to understand. But no words came. His body, overwhelmed by the acute shock and emotional trauma, gave out. He staggered a single step forward, his knees buckled, and then, in a horrifying instant that will be forever seared into the memories of all who witnessed it, he collapsed. The room erupted into chaos. Brooke's scream tore through the stunned silence as she rushed to his side, dropping to her knees. "Dad!" Ridge roared, his voice sharp with panic, already shouting orders to call 911. Reporters, who moments before were hungry for a story, now scrambled. Some backed away in horror, while others, driven by instinct, kept their cameras filming, unsure if they were documenting a tragedy or the breaking news story of a lifetime. Paramedics arrived with startling speed, their efficiency a stark contrast to the emotional pandemonium they entered. They pushed through the frantic crowd, stabilized Eric, and lifted him onto a stretcher, an oxygen mask already covering his face as monitors blinked with grim urgency. As the ambulance pulled away, its sirens wailing into the Los Angeles afternoon, everyone left behind was reeling. The glittering press conference had ended in horror. The Forrester family was, once again, shattered. And Hope Logan was left standing motionless behind the podium, her hands gripping its edge so tightly her knuckles were white, frozen in a mix of fear, guilt, and devastating disbelief. A dynasty in disarray. The fallout. The immediate aftermath was a maelstrom of raw, unfiltered emotion. Back at Forrester Creations, with the patriarch now en route to the hospital, The simmering tensions that had defined the family for generations boiled over. Ridge exploded first. He confronted Hope, his voice, usually so composed and authoritative, cracked with a raw fury. You humiliated him. Your grandfather. In front of the world, he snarled, his words striking like daggers. The man who trusted you. For Ridge, this was more than an attack on his father. It was a sacrilegious assault on the Forrester legacy, the institution he had dedicated his life to preserving. He saw not a brave truth-teller, but a reckless traitor who had sacrificed family for a moment of self-aggrandizing drama. Brooke, ever the heart of the family's conflicts, was visibly torn. She reached for Hope, a maternal instinct to protect her child warring with the horror of what had just transpired. She was caught between two impossible loyalties: her daughter, who she wanted to believe had acted with conviction, and the man whose family she had married into, the man now fighting for his life because of that conviction. When Steffi finally returned and learned what had happened, her reaction was swift, cold, and utterly scathing. She confronted Hope not with the fiery rage of her father, but with a voice like ice. "You burned down this family just to prove a point," she hissed, her eyes filled with contempt. "Congratulations. You got your spotlight. Was it worth it?" The division was not limited to the core family. Among the staff at Forrester Creations, reactions were mixed and whispered in hushed, fearful tones. Some saw Hope as a hero, a brave voice who had done what no one else dared to do. She told the truth, one assistant murmured, even when it hurt. They saw her as a champion for the little guy, for the employees who had lost their jobs while the powerful enriched themselves. But others were less forgiving. They saw her actions as profoundly self-serving and reckless. "You don't drop a bomb like that in public," another snapped. "You talk to family first." They saw a woman who had endangered the company's reputation and, by extension, all of their livelihoods. Saint, sinner, or saboteur? The question of motive. As the dust began to settle, the real questions began to swirl, not just in the boardrooms and tabloids, but in the minds of everyone involved. Did Hope truly act out of pure moral conviction, or was there something darker, more calculated, beneath the surface? Speculation immediately turned to Thomas Forrester. With his history of manipulation and obsession with Hope, could he have been a silent accomplice? He had access to the archives, to the internal documents. Was he a puppet master, leaking the information to Hope and hoping she would be the one to pull the trigger, thereby clearing a path for his own ambitions while destroying his family's enemies from within? His silence in the hours following the event was deafening. Others argued that this was Hope's own calculated rebellion. After all, despite her name and position, she was often treated as an outsider, a Logan working under a Forrester roof. Perhaps this was her declaration of independence, a way to finally break free from the long shadow of the Forrester name and forge her own identity, even if it meant using scorched earth tactics. Or perhaps the simplest explanation was the most tragic, that years of being silenced, dismissed, and pushed aside had finally caused something to snap. That this wasn't a calculated plot, but the eruption of a very public reckoning, born from a deep-seated need to be heard. The unforgiving future. Later that evening, speaking to a small, persistent group of reporters outside the building, Hope stood by her decision, though the bravado was gone, replaced by a weary exhaustion. "Truth isn't always comfortable," she said quietly, her voice barely a whisper, "but it's necessary. We can't build a future on a lie, even if that lie was told with love." The flashbulbs popped, but Hope didn't smile. She knew the war had only just begun. Now, the future of Forrester Creations hangs precariously in the balance. The trust that held the family together has been fractured, perhaps beyond repair. Eric's health is at risk, and the company's public image is teetering on the edge. Hope herself has become both a symbol of truth and a lightning rod for blame. Will Eric recover, not just physically, but emotionally from this ultimate betrayal? Can Ridge hold the family together when its very foundation is crumbling? And will Brooke be forced to choose a side as the rift between her daughter and her husband deepens into an impassable chasm? More importantly, was Hope a heroine for truth, Or was her quest for justice a betrayal so profound that she can never be forgiven? The answers remain elusive, shrouded in the smoke of a dynasty set ablaze. One thing, however, is certain. On a day that began with the promise of a bright future, the Forrester family was plunged into its darkest hour, and the consequences of hope's shocking revelation are only just beginning to unfold. Thanks for watching this video. Please hit the subscribe button for more updated news.